This is my house here, West Gilgo Beach, right below us. I do love flying over here. It's kind of cool to see my house from here.
I started getting into airplanes in the late 80s. In 1986, there were two movies that came out that year. Iron Eagle and Top Gun just really pushed me over the edge and said, man, I want to fly airplanes one day. As I was graduating junior high school, I got to go to a high school orientation. Got to see, the programs available, and then another vocational program called BOCES. There was a gentleman sitting at the desk, and he said to me, hey kid, you want to fly airplanes? Just like that. Told me about a little program called pilot training. And I said, what do you mean, pilot training? He goes, pilot training. You get to fly airplanes. And I said, okay. And I got to, as a 16-year-old kid, learn how to fly airplanes. And it was the most amazing experience of my life. My future career of flying, air traffic control, it all started with that program. I remember my first time I soloed the aircraft. It only happens once. I got to the runway and I was ready to take off. And then I looked to my right and I didn't see the flight instructor. And it was just me. I hit rotation speed after putting the throttle forward and I took off for the first time. It was the most exhilarating experience of my life.
I am runway 32, clear for takeoff, southeast Santa Cruz. Skyline 20. 55 knots, rotate, engine instruments in the green. Airspeed is alive.
The awe and the draw of airplanes has not subsided at all. I still feel like a kid every time I go flying, and I try to share that joy as a flight instructor now, teaching students and getting them to that point where they can get their certificate. Just one of the joys of flying is just being able to experience the freedom of leaving the earth and watching it from up high. Is just something that's really hard to explain. You have to do it to appreciate it. When I finally earned my pilot certificate at 17 years old, the first person I took up was my dad. The funniest part of that experience was that he had to drive to the airport because I didn't have a driver's license yet. I had a pilot certificate. So once we got in the airplane, I took over. After high school, I could only do it for a couple of semesters, and then I actually had to stop because I just couldn't afford it. So I went into banking and finance and did that for a number of years until I met a girl. I had talked to her about things that I had done, and I told her I was a licensed pilot, and it was something that I just kind of did, but I didn't pursue any further. Turns out her younger brother went to the exact same flight school program that I went to in high school. She actually pushed me to go back to flight school. She said, you talk about it so much like you love it. I think you should go back to flight school. Sure enough, I decided to do that. Because of that move, I now have a wonderful career in aviation. And also we decided to get married and have children. And it has taken us to, for lack of a better phrase, new heights and new experiences. And I owe it really all to her for pushing me to go back to flight school. Because without that, I wouldn't be where I am today. An air traffic controller at one of the busiest facilities in the nation. Very proud of that job. Work with some of the greatest air traffic controllers in the world. It's probably one of the highlights of my aviation career. If I had to go back and tell my younger self a piece of advice, I would say, don't give up. There were many times where I wanted to walk away from flying. It's expensive, it's prohibitive in many ways, but it's probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So I would tell myself to stay the course.